And now,
it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake, Scott, Ben, Anderson. Thank you for making us a part of your day. Happy belated Father's Day to you, Ben. How was your trip?
It was excellent. I had a good time. Went to Bear Lake and then shot up to Lava Hot Springs Saturday. It was awesome. And my dad was there, and I was there with my kids, and took them fishing for the first time, which is overdue, but it was very fun.
How'd it go?
No bites. But who cares? They didn't care.
What'd you use as bait?
Whatever, the salmon eggs and marshmallows, like, you know, the cheese marshmallows.
You didn't teach them the worm, though?
No, I wanted to get worms in town, and then it wasn't that big of a deal.
I feel like that's like a rite of passage.
Absolutely.
Power bait's too easy.
Yeah, it is.
Not that I'm any fisherman.
No, nor am I. I don't know anything about it. I'm sure there's people listening like, you were using power bait on the shores of Bear Lake, you idiot. Like, of course you didn't catch anything. It's like, yeah, probably.
I grew up fishing with my grandfather, was my fishing experience, basically. And I feel like I'm grateful to him for showing me how to worm a hook.
I don't know if I know how to do it.
Like as a little kid, you know, you're a little squeamish about things.
Yeah,
He's
absolutely.
like, hey, get over it.
Yeah, right.
We're fishing.
Not so much into hitting the fish over the head with the pliers to kill it, but we didn't catch anything, so we didn't have to traumatize my children.
And then you make them clean them.
Yeah.
Had to do that, too.
Absolutely. Cleaned it with my grandpa. All the little bones. Yeah, whatever.
We're going to fish with my kids at the beach this year. So
it's fun, man.
I prepared them for the bait situation.
It's a good time.
I was like, you're probably going to get like little minnows or squid or something. So get over it.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, well, good. I'm glad you had a good weekend. That's great.
You should get some goldfish now and raise them and then fly them with you and use them as the bait.
So they really can identify, really get attached.
Get a lesson.
Yeah.
Get a lesson. Everything goes.
Oh,
this is the circle of life, sweetheart. This is what happens.
It's not just about teaching, some real life lesson. It's about causing emotional pain as well.
Yeah, the whole teach a man to fish saying is outdated. You got to brutalize your children with fish. Yeah.
Oh, man.
We've got to take it to the next step.
Okay. Well, you're good. Good. Christian, did you do your dad right?
Yeah, I went up there yesterday, little barbecue. Nice, relaxing Sunday,
Brigham City?
Brigham City,
nice.
Yeah.
Now, you missed Friday. Christian and his brother were going to grill, and his dad is a real grill master, so to speak. And, that's a high standard, right? If you're going to tell dad to take a break and you're going to do it. So I want to know how the food went.
Pressure was on, man. But
yeah.
I'll tell you what, we lived up to it.
You nailed it?
I think
Home
it turned
run?
out great. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah. He liked it. Dad was happy. Everybody seemed to like the food. So
awesome. Well, that's great. Glad everybody had a good weekend.
Hey, you know who just had the best weekend? Can I break this news? Is this fair of me? I feel bad doing this because his father works for the station. Rock just got an offer to the University of Utah.
Wow, I'm also just seeing that there. Tommy Rock Olson
shares a great photo on Twitter of him as he must have been 3 years old here because he's just almost as tall as Witt. So he must have been 3 or 4 years old here.
Said I just got an offer from the University of Utah. Had my first camp with Coach Witt when I was 10. I got invited to camp last weekend, fought my butt off, and Coach Harding called and offered. Thanks to a bunch of coaches for staying in touch and believing in me. That's awesome. Well, happy for Rock. He's a good kid.
This does tie into the big story of the weekend, I thought, or what we are seeing evolve really quickly in our state, which is Utah had a huge recruiting weekend, if you followed it at all. Got a big 4-star recruit at linebacker. Sounds like they had other success, and it sounds like there's going to be more recruits rolling in if you follow the recruiting people or Michelle Bodkin, our Utah insider at KSL Sports. My takeaway, Jake, was, that is a absolute direct reflection and investment related to what's happening with BYU basketball. Am I crazy? Is that too tinfoil hat that the athletic departments are competing against each other, and we like to think, but football competes against football and basketball competes against basketball? I don't know if that's the case.
Well, first of all, before I dive into that, Alex Jones, I think that just means we need to play our song today.
Oh, yeah, please. Our rock song.
I don't even remember what it was called.
You wrote it. You've written so many bangers.
So many really good ones.
It's hard to remember
Got a story about a man named Hans. Used to play ball, had big dreams and plans. But he wasn't as good as his uncle Merlin. Always felt like he was just a throw it in. Now his son Rock, he was just a throw it in. Now his son Rock, he's the real deal. Gonna take the field, show him how it feels. Hans had his time, but now it's Rock's turn. He's gonna make his mark. Let the world all learn. Let the world all learn. Set to make his mark. The Rock's gonna take it to the highest spot.
Way to go, Rock.
Way to go, man.
We are proud of our guy, Rock. That's awesome. Congratulations. Well, I'm very curious to see where Rock commits to, because he's got a bunch of good offers now. So,
and they're just starting.
Big ups to him. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he will have, I would imagine, a Big Ten offer before this is done. Maybe an SEC offer before this is done. Very cool.
Now, I asked this just somewhat in jest. Hans is taking bribes, right? I mean, he's carving off a little something for
what
Papa,
would you do?
Right? I mean,
and is that how you would view it? If somebody came after you, how old's your daughter? 6? Almost 7?
Almost 7, yeah.
And was like, hey, she's got to be in the next Target ad selling backpacks. She's the look we're going for. She's exactly what we want. You would say, well, look, this is a business transaction. Dad's going to sit down at the table. You've done some of these negotiations before in your life. Let's talk dollars. And I don't even know if it's that like vulgar of a conversation anymore. I don't know if that's off kilter anymore. I think that's the business.
You $10,000 to get to talk to him.
To get to talk to him, you think that's
like? You want to see? You want to see those transcripts to see? Because that's the thing they charge for these days, right? You want to see his transcript because they have to access them. Anyway, you want to get those? Oh, it's going to cost you.
It's going to cost you a lot.
It's going to be cash.
Yeah.
So, because I got a tax thing, I gotta, if you could.
Well, if Hans changes cars. In the next couple of days.
I guarantee that's not where Hans would
invest. If there's new rims on his car when he comes in. Or he's got more new... he cuts the tags off his jeans, you mean?
That's not Hans.
You mean he doesn't take his jeans back to the store after he wears them?
He's just notoriously not car guy.
Okay.
Like if he were going to invest that skimmed money, it would be somewhere else.
Okay.
Yeah. Like he'd have property in Jackson Hole or something.
Yeah, good
microwaves. Yeah, for all of his condos. Anywho, you asked me if somehow Utah getting commits is competing with BYU basketball. No, I think they're unrelated.
You think they're unrelated?
I do.
I think I see a real situation where Utah recruiting has a significant cash boost. This is pure speculation on my part.
Oh, no, if you want to have a discussion on where resources are going within the programs, I think that's interesting. But
and
I don't
think
this
might be a reaction from big donors at Utah who said, hey, we want to be a football school and we want to lean into that.
That's the part that's ridiculous. Utah's has leaned into football since Majerus left and are raising as much money as they can, regardless of what BYU is doing in any sport. And I think BYU basketball is really interesting because I think that's an interesting dynamic within BYU that, again, has nothing to do with Utah.
You don't think so?
I don't. I think BYU has been a football school, and a lot of resources have been going to football. And now, are the basketball resources how am I trying to put this? Why do they have so many resources in basketball all of a sudden? Why is that? And I don't know. Are they pulling from football? I kind of doubt it.
I would doubt it.
Or is this new money? Is this money that is going to basketball because one or two or three specific people are passionate about the basketball program and wouldn't be donating to football otherwise? I think that's really interesting. Like, why is BYU? Because if you look at BYU is way punching above their weight in this as a basketball program in this day and age of college basketball. When it comes to NIL money, when it comes to what they're paying their coach. Ben, I was shocked that it was leaked how much this coach is going to make. Yeah. That is, I joked with Mitch Harper about it. That is the white whale of BYU reporters.
Yep.
Jay Drew has been trying to find out how much these coaches are making since he got the beat in '03 or whatever it was.
We've always heard it's less than what other coaches make in similar situations, but we don't know how much less. That's always been what we've known.
People have FOIA'd tax returns and stuff. Like, people have been trying forever. And then all of a sudden it gets leaked to Woj. It's like, okay, well, why? But Utah football has all the momentum within that athletic department and will get the lion's share of the resources. They've got a conference title winning program.
Yep. Oh, look everywhere. Right now, all these preseason picks are coming out right now because we're a little less than a month away from Media Day, about 3 weeks away from Media Day, and people are talking. Utah's almost universally picked to win the Big 12.
Yeah, the basketball program is a borderline disaster. They're not getting any resources, not until the concept is proven. There's got to be some people in that donor base that think that they're going to have to pony up for a new coach in a year. There's a lot of internal stuff. I don't think Utah specifically raises money for this in response to what's going on at BYU, even BYU football. And I get it that they're back in the same league, so there's going to be a little bit more competition, but I think everybody's keeping their eye on the ball to find every nickel that's not nailed down all of the time. That's why that job probably sucks. That's why I'm sure Witt hates selling trucks. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
But I think BYU basketball is interesting because they've gotten, I don't know if this is, you remember what election was it? Obama was running. It was the first time he ran. So that would have been 2008 against John McCain. And one of his big selling points is the average donation is 50 cents. That means that he's got 2,500 million people that are supporting him. I don't think BYU basketball is the grassroots,
no, it's not.
$10 at a time.
No way.
I think they've found some real interest in the BYU basketball program. And everybody thinks Ryan Smith, and I do think, yes, but he's not the only one.
Absolutely
There's some other people focusing their attention on BYU basketball. And that shouldn't come as a surprise. If anything, I'm surprised about the lack of that for BYU football, maybe.
I agree with you, but BYU basketball season last year, let me think through this. Was it better than the 2020 football season for BYU football?
The basketball season last year
than 2020.
The COVID year?
The COVID year.
Don't compare it to that. Find a different year. Because
I'm just trying to think of the last quote-unquote great football year for BYU.
That year doesn't qualify for so many really good reasons.
I'm with you.
And you know what? I don't want to criticize that year at all because I'm just glad they played.
Absolutely.
That's it. So if you want to go back to a Taysom team,
okay, well, we're so far.
If you want to go back
it was
to
literally a different sport back then. Right? There was the transfer portal was just barely opening. It was been around a little while.
It was a different sport in 2020 as well. So
okay, that's fine. If you want to make that argument, I'll listen to that. I'm just thinking it's not that surprising that there's all this money going into BYU basketball. They were awesome last year. Mark Pope had that team cooking, and they go 23-11. They are competing for not a Big 12 title per se, but they were relevant all year long in college basketball and certainly in that conference, and obviously had the disappointing exit, but it was actually really easy that you could pin that on the coach on the way out the door, and then you still say, hey, this is a team that we think can compete in the Big 12. I don't know if that's true. The talent certainly is going to help. Kevin Young's going to have to prove that he's a good coach on the floor as well and can keep those things up, but No, it makes total sense why this money's coming in right now.
I do think this has been building a little bit too. It's fresh now with BYU basketball, but I think they've been gaining support for a while. There's a reason that Mark Pope was the head coach.
Yeah.
And he I don't know what he made. Again, the white whale, but I've heard he was compensated fairly.
Yeah.
So, it's not like this has just started. Now, I think if you want to say that they got a taste of what Big 12 basketball can be about and that they might actually have a chance, and that I was completely wrong and didn't think they'd win a game in that league, and not only did they win a game, but they competed. And probably some people got a taste of that and thought, well, let's keep that ball rolling. And BYU basketball's got a ton of momentum.
They do. That's the big part of it. People want to invest in a winner. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this money that has come out for BYU has been there and donors just didn't want to spend it. What, you get to spend it on a football team that's not showing that much promise, with all due respect. They kind of keep doing this. They'll build up a little bit and they'll get ready to fall off.
Right to Utah basketball. The programs that need the resources
don't get them.
Don't get them.
Don't get them.
I had a how much of this story do I want to tell? I had a job interview with a big national radio company to be a program director at another station.
Right.
And the other station was struggling across the board, right? And he's like, how we do it in this company is if you have some success, then we'll start giving you some resources. And then, when you have a more success, more resources and all this stuff. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, you just told me the station's at the bottom of the barrel. Yeah. And then if I take the job, I'm not going to have any resources to have any success.
Until I turn it around by myself.
Like that doesn't sound like a real attractive situation.
Correct.
Per se. Where I'm confused is that BYU has been a football school forever and has not been a basketball school. The support for football should be there. I think if we're going to draw any sort of conclusion from this, is that is the support being mismanaged? That could be another thing we can talk about. But the support for BYU football, they put 60,000 butts in the seats every weekend.
The fan support is there.
The other support, Ben, BYU's got plenty of alumni that are plenty capable to help out. And I think it's lame now that we're relying on these people to field competitive football programs. That bothers me fundamentally, but it is what it is. As another famous boss of mine once said. So where's that? That's what I wonder. Or are they getting the dough and they're just not like Keaton Slovis last year wasn't cheap.
No, he wasn't. He couldn't have been.
Right. So why didn't that work? I mean, that I would say would be an investment in the program that went nowhere. Much like the investment in Cam Rising last year.
Yeah.
That didn't manifest. I wonder if there were grumpy people about that.
Sure,
obviously not that grumpy because they turned around and retained him. You know what I mean? But
there's a difference between the money that I'm guessing it costs to get Keaton Slovis and the money I think it costs to get Gary Bohannon.
Well, Hans thinks it's nothing to get Gary Bohannon.
Well, that's a difference.
But that's the thing. Don't put him aside. So are we going to criticize BYU for not landing a big transfer at quarterback? I mean, they did land Hillstead. I bet that wasn't free. Because Utah State really wanted to keep him.
But that's not what...
A game changer, but maybe that's not available.
It's not, Yegor Dioman, whatever he's getting.
Right.
The rumored $1.5 million or whatever it is to get a player. That's not what it costs to get the quarterback from Utah State.
And you still have to play the card you're dealt. If you don't hire an NBA coach, you don't have that NBA connection where this player obviously is just a one and done and wants to be in the league next year. And you don't have to sell, hey, if Mark Pope were still the coach, they're not landing him regardless of what money BYU comes up with, right? So what do you have to sell? And having Zach Wilson and Jaron Hall to sell should get you something. I agree. But it doesn't mean you recklessly spend it on Keaton Slovis, which I would say was a mistake.
I mean, mistake in the sense you didn't make a bowl game.
A mistake in the sense that he wasn't very good.
Yeah, he was exactly
he's
who
still
he
not
looked like
very
he was.
good.
Yeah, he's the same guy.
He wasn't very good then.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And he couldn't stay on the field, which I don't want to, overly criticize somebody for getting hurt, because that certainly played a role in it too. He couldn't stay on the field. But you know what? They weren't that great when he was on the field.
Right.
He wasn't that great.
Yeah.
So, what's next? I still say the success for BYU, and this may play right into our conversation, invest $10 million in a quarterback that is going to be a guy can go spin it, because that's what's going to win BYU football games. Find John Beck. And I'm not even saying Steve Young.
The problem is
Find John Beck.
that edge BYU used to be able to have of selling quarterbacks to come play at their school might totally disappear with NIL.
Well, then
might
find it.
totally disappear.
Well, they got to find it. Honestly, they've got to find it on the staff. And these kind of things are delicate, but it doesn't necessarily mean replacing somebody. But you've got to find a message to sell to quarterbacks, whether it's playing time or development or frankly, and this works for BYU, a church environment.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like whatever you got to sell out there to get the quarterback in and get him playing where he needs to play. I don't know. You got to figure out how to invest in that process.
I think the problem is, again, every school wants to pay every quarterback as much money as they can. And we'll do it. And we'll find a way to do it.
Then find him and keep him. Cam Rising wasn't a high-profile transfer from Texas. That was an afterthought.
Correct.
You
have to find lightning in a bottle. But that's not going out and paying $10 million for the next John Beck.
I was joking.
No, I understand what you're saying. But what you're saying is go find the 5-star kid and bring him in and let him be the 5-star kid. That's not who Cam Rising even was. He's a 5-star kid now. He wasn't certainly when Utah got him. And I get he had been a big recruit.
He was a big recruit, and then he wasn't because he had lost a quarterback competition. And so he had to find a place to rebuild it. He rebuilt it at Utah, and he commanded a large sum on the open market.
Yep.
And Utah figured out a way to keep him.
Yep.
So there's more than one way to skin a squirrel.
Sure.
So I don't know, BYU, but they got to figure it out. And I don't know. I would be asking, is that an investment problem? Do they need a big donor or what? But I think Utah is maximizing its resources on the football side, and we can draw that as it manifested over the weekend.
Well, and BYU's pushing its assets to basketball.
That's the thing. Is basketball taking a bite out of football? I don't know.
Do you think Utah football is taking a bite out of basketball?
Absolutely.
Then I think it's fair to say the opposite's going on at BYU.
Yeah, but that's what I was getting at the beginning. Like, if you find a couple of billionaire donors that are uniquely tied to the basketball program, well, that's new money. That's not taking a bite out of football. That's what I was trying to get to at the very beginning. Like, would Ryan Smith be donating that money to the football program? I actually don't know,
Sure.
so I don't want to speak for him.
I think that's totally fair.
But he's been supporting that basketball program. I told you I ran into him at the airport. He was flying to, wherever, the Bahamas or something with the basketball team.
Yeah.
Like, and I hope I'm not saying anything I shouldn't, other than he's been a basketball supporter for a long time, and that's fine.
Yep.
But I don't know if that, like, if he would be donating that money to football, well, then that's a different story. But I don't think that's true. He said on Hanson and Scotty has a special connection to BYU, but in particular BYU basketball. And you pointed out that it actually isn't the worst thing for the Jazz either.
Sure. Bring a bunch of lottery picks through Utah for a 6-month period.
So
see if they like living here.
Right. But that's unique to basketball. That's not I'm taken from the marketing budget to pay the HR department.
Sure.
But Utah basketball, I don't know. Is it a resource problem in Utah basketball? Is it that football gets all of the attention? I would think part of it is.
I would say yes and yes.
I also think that Craig hasn't found the recipe.
Also true.
So, he had the recipe at Utah State, and we can talk about what that recipe was. But the recipe, whatever it is, hasn't worked at Utah, and that bears some responsibility too. Now, is the problem with his recipe that he doesn't have the NIL budget to land Nimi Keita?
Maybe.
Is it something as simple as that? I don't know. But yeah, there's no way the basketball program is getting resources on par with other basketball schools in the Big 12.
No way. Not until they have success, which, again, how do you do that?
And they did kind of in the Pac-12, but that's just because most of the Pac-12 didn't invest in their basketball program. Mostly football schools in the Pac-12.
And even USC, who did, was horrible. Spent millions of dollars on that roster last year and was a joke.
And UCLA would have, but they didn't have any money.
Yeah.
But Washington, Oregon, even the good basketball programs in the Pac-12 are still football schools and not really nationally known basketball programs, as much as you love Dana Altman.
He's my guy.
Is he?
No, he's very good. He's a top 10 college basketball coach.
I know, but I'd look at a coach like him and go, good at what?
Yeah.
What exactly is that guy's skill? I can't remember if it's or Britton or Tim who told me the Majerus would encounter certain types of figures in college basketball and then come away saying, like, what? Like, I had to take a shower after shaking that guy's hand. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, Dana Altman strikes me as one of those. Like, God, I feel like I just need to just give me 10. I'm gonna I'm gonna bounce up and just get a rinse. Sorry, we're way over. All right, top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com. Coming up next, Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Don't miss your chance to win big every week on this station. This week on Win Ticket Tuesday. We're not going to have shows on Wednesday, so it's a Win Ticket Tuesday. You can win a pair of tickets to see Styx and Foreigner at Aerofest 2024, live at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on June 26th. Listen to the station all day on Tuesday, June 18th, for your chance to win. Time for the top 3 stories of the day. KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations to serve you. One on Winchester Street, across from Fashion Place Mall. The other at Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. All right, Christian, where are we starting today?
Number 1, NBA Finals, Game 5 tonight. How long can the Mavericks stay alive?
I try to never read into Game 4 when you're down 3-0. I saw the Jazz beat the Houston Rockets because Jay Crowder got hot and hit a bunch of threes in the first quarter. We saw the Minnesota Timberwolves do this in Game 4 on the road at Dallas, going back home for Game 5, thinking, well, of course they're going to win Game 5 at home now, and send this back to Dallas for a high-pressure Game 6, and Dallas just absolutely erased them in Game 5. So I would expect Boston closes this out tonight. They are at home. That makes it much easier. I was impressed with how well Dallas played. It's the first time that whole group kind of came together in this finals. They looked more like the team that had played well in the Western Conference playoffs. But Jaylen Brown was bad. Jason Tatum was bad. I don't expect them both to be bad again. I don't think Dallas is good enough to make that happen for another night.
I thought it was way more Boston's NyQuil game. In fact, Ben, I wonder if they were asked to throw it.
You think so? We'll give you the next one.
I think Boston's ownership is stoked about how few home games they played in this playoff. They need the home game. They need the gate.
I do.
Win it at home. They need the money.
I do think winning at home is a thing. And that's not to say Boston said, let's not win on the road. Let's throw this game so we can win at home. I do think because it's human nature to just say, back pocket, Game 5's in Boston. They can't beat us. Let's just go home and win in Boston. I think you always have that fallback of saying, well, if this first option doesn't work, we've got this even better second option. So they went with the second option.
And it's why they didn't get off the bus. It's totally relatable. But Boston, that was their 3rd loss of the playoffs. Their owner is like, man, Cleveland's made more money off this playoff run than we have. This stinks. We need another game, boys.
Yep.
We need another home game. Come out. Everybody makes money off those home games. I'm sure the radio affiliate for the Celtics is like, come on,
please.
We need to read these ads.
We got some ads for the pregame show that have to hit.
So I do think there's something to the, all right, well, we could either knock ourselves out trying to win this one or just win it in Game 5 at home, and I would expect that because nothing really has changed. Boston's still a better team. There's still a mismatch for Dallas, And I in no way think that Dallas is all of a sudden going to rattle off 4 in a row.
No, I don't. I'm just going to say this. I don't buy into the series until there's a Game 7. It's Boston series, 3-0. No one's ever erased 3-0. We know that. Last year, Boston did take Miami to Game 7 after falling back 3-0. And then Miami beat them in Boston. So this would be the ultimate Joe Mazzulla. Well, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown choke job if they lose a 3-0 lead in the finals, looking as dominant as they did. Apologies to Tyrese Halliburton. He has nothing to do with this conversation. But I just don't see it. I don't see that happening.
All right, moving on.
Number 2, Caitlin Clark took another hard foul over the weekend.
For inside, I think we were playing really hard. I think we went up really strong a lot of times and we didn't get a lot of calls. And going back and looking at the film, I've seen a lot of calls that weren't made. I guess some people got a special whistle, but...
Angel Reese committed that flagrant foul, Ben, the arch nemesis of Caitlin Clark, and that was her comment about the whole thing after the game. Some people get a special whistle, Ben. Reaction.
Good. All of this is good. I think all of this is unbelievably great for the WNBA. You and I have talked more WNBA in the first, 14 games into the season? I mean, some teams haven't even played that many. They've really cranked up the schedule for Caitlin Clark, so she's on national TV a bunch, and you can find her. The more you talk about it, the better. And unfortunately, I know that people want Caitlin Clark to represent all these things and be a spokesperson for equality in the WNBA, which I don't think is her burden. If she wants to do it, she has the platform to. If she doesn't want to do it, I don't think she has to. I don't think that's anybody's job. But I think the fact that we talk about the WNBA because of anything that happens to Caitlin Clark draws national attention is huge for the league. And it was a flagrant foul. Angel Reese doesn't need to be fined for it. She hit her in the head. She was swinging for the ball. She missed. She hit her in the head. It's a flagrant foul in all of basketball. It's a flagrant in the NBA. It's a flagrant in the WNBA. It is funny, though, that it does make national news in that conversation.
Okay, I totally agree with you and on pretty much everything. But can I tell you what bugs me about all of this? Is that a lot of people pretend like this is new. All this is something new. Like what the WNBA players are doing is new. What Caitlin Clark is doing is new. The controversy surrounding it all is new. It's all happened a zillion times before, but we have to pretend like everything is special. Like this national news for all these reasons are the same. Like every golfer was jelly of Tiger Woods. We think of the Fuzzy Zeller incident, which did involve some racial components, which was unfortunate. But his whole motivation was he was mad he lost a tournament and got in this young 19 or 20-year-old or whatever, however old Tiger was all of a sudden a bigger deal than everybody had been doing it for 1,000 years. Yep. And he was jealous of it all.
Oh, I'd have to go back and find the golfer, but it's an active golfer who's interviewing Tiger at that stage. And Tiger's like 19 going into his first major. He's like, what do you expect? And Tiger's like, I expect to win. And the guy's like, okay. And then Tiger rattles off. It's like, no, this is not new. You're right.
Ron Boone didn't like Magic Johnson, apparently.
Correct.
LeBron James, if you listen to some of the scuttlebutt around about why he disliked Steph Curry so much, was because Steph Curry got all this attention and a unanimous MVP, and LeBron thought he was jumping in line.
Shaq didn't like Kobe.
His
own teammate who's doing the exact same thing. Yep.
We act like this is some new thing. It's not new. We've seen it a million times, but yet everybody runs with it as if, oh my gosh, what is this? Is those terrible WNBA players, or Caitlin Clark sucking up all this undue attention, or even the racial component is not new.
No, it's not.
It's not new at all. This has been a thing. Stop pretending like it's now a thing and then casting blame and taking sides and all this stupid stuff. It just bugs me. Like, let's enjoy basketball. I agree with you that it's good for the WNBA. It is. Any attention is good attention. We watched Greatest Showman last night. That's like what that whole movie's all about. It's like the whole thing. So I just get bothered by people in our business who pretend like
we've not seen this before.
We haven't seen this before a zillion times.
Venus and Serena dealt with it? I mean,
absolutely, except for the Martina and Chris Everett and Monica Seles are like the nicest people on the planet.
But there were media members who were not rooting for them to succeed. who didn't want to see them succeed or take over and become the face of tennis.
Yeah, interesting. And here's an interesting dynamic. The tennis player that was really resented was Maria Sharapova because she got all the attention for her looks.
Yeah.
But then along came, why am I going blank now?
I know who you're talking
about. The next, she got suspended for performance-enhancing drugs. Maria Sharapova and Anna Kournikova.
Anna
Kournikova was the one that got the attention for all her looks. Maria Sharapova came along and got a ton of attention for her looks, and then she won Wimbledon. And all of a sudden, it was like this. She was just legitimized by it all because she could actually play, where Anna Kournikova really never passed. Sharapova could play.
Yeah.
Kournikova could not.
Okay.
She never got past 20 in the world rankings. I apologize for how confusing that sounds. But that was an interesting dynamic in and of itself. And how many young whippersnappers has Serena put away in her career that she was like, oh, why is this gal getting attention? Excuse me.
Yeah.
This is my stage. I'm Serena Williams. That's nothing new. So every time you see a clickbait headline or are alarmed by somebody coming out and saying, just, you know what, crack a recent sports history book and you can see how this turns out. She's going to probably turn out to be a pretty good player, hopefully be good for the league. Everybody else is going to fall in line because eventually they can't beat her. And you hope it's a boon for a sport that really needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does need it.
Because that's what's happened in the past.
It'd be so good they can't deny it. And I think she is ascending there, and she just had her best game over the weekend. So she is continuing to get better.
What was unfair maybe is that she was expected to be that day one, which I don't think is fair.
She's not been far off.
LeBron and Wemby were expected to be really good right away, but were absolutely given some grace when they first got into the league by everybody from an expectation standpoint.
I'll be curious if she makes the All-Star team. I would imagine she would via the public vote.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Yao Ming started in the stupid All-Star game for a decade because of the public vote. Whatever. That's the rules they set up. I got no problem with that.
And yeah, it was pretty good, and Caitlin Clark's very good.
And don't villainize the WNBA players for doing anything that the 90s Pistons didn't do to Michael Jordan.
Correct.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Yep, everyone's done it.
It's jelly.
Yep, it is.
It'd be a little jelly. It's okay.
Kareem didn't like
forgive
Magic.
You. No.
Kareem didn't like Magic.
Not at the beginning anyway.
Yeah.
Although that he jumped on board pretty quick. He sat down with Magic's dad. They had an understanding.
Well, when he hits a game winner in the finals, it's hard to say, I don't want him anymore.
All right, what's next?
Number 3, Bryson DeChambeau wins his second U.S. Open.
Man, I can't believe that up and down the last. That was all-world, probably the best shot of my life.
Yeah, it legit was. I mean,
I don't like watching him play. I don't like the way he plays.
Oh, I don't like him. I don't like his
stiff
persona.
arms when he's
No.
putting. There's no fluidity there.
No.
It's not fun. It's all power, and I get it. That's a thing.
But I do love that did you see him run the U.S. Open trophy around and let everybody touch it and stuff? Like the sheer, almost boyish glee of it was entertaining to watch. And he's right about his shot, and he got up and down, and he made the putt and all that stuff. But nobody would have cared if it wasn't for one of the more epic collapses. I mean, this was Rory's Greg Norman moment. And I feel terrible because I really pull for Rory because he's been the face of this PGA thing, and he's stuck to it. And I think he's been aggressive at times when he needs to be aggressive. And he hasn't won a major in 10 years and all the things. And to just go out and throw it away is so hard to watch.
He looked distraught after.
And then to peel out of the parking lot like a 15-year-old is frustrating to me. I get it that he's crushed, but to behave that way, I don't know. Some people excuse it, but I don't.
No, you got to be a winner. You got to be gracious in winning and losing.
And be a good sport.
Yep.
And all the things.
He still made $2.5 million yesterday.
He did fine.
He did fine.
He just bogeyed 3 out of the 4 final holes, including missing what are basically gimmies.
Gimme putts, yeah. And I'm sure that those putts are insane. I'm sure I could never make them, especially in that situation. But in his life, with the practice he's put in, those are gimmies.
He's made that putt 1,000 times.
Correct. Brutal.
Without even thinking about it.
Absolutely brutal.
You know what I mean? And I love it that he's got a random kind of Utah connection where he spent a summer out here in Ogden, of all places, I think, right? He and Tony Finau are buddies. All the things. I just wanted Rory to win. I did not want Bryson to win.
I'm with you.
And, hey, I'll give it to Bryson, though. He made those shots.
Yeah, that chip was
on 18.
Extraordinarily clutch.
And the long iron to get there out of the junk. Amazing. And then make the putt. You know, he earned it. I'm not going to.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to fault somebody for running around like a madman with a trophy. Good for him. But Rory just collapsed. Choked. No other way to say it. It's too bad.
I can't even say I've choked because I've never been good enough in golf to have anything to choke away. I'm just terrible at it, so whatever.
God, a decade since he won a major, though.
It's
He's got
crazy.
just gripping. And hey, you know what? Let's shake some hands and behave like an adult afterwards. We all feel bad for you.
Yep.
All right, stay tuned. We'll have more next. Jacob at 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Spread your love and fly. Spread your love and fly. Spread your love and fly.
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. It's our 50th segment, which is brought to you, as always, by Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformation. Begin with Peach Doors and Windows. 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. We also want to remind you to nominate the youth sports volunteer you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contests and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union.
Jacob, the 2024 Salt Lake City Summer League schedule has been released. It starts on July 8th. Usually they start it before the 4th of July and then take the 4th of July off and then continue it after. But they're waiting until the second week of July. July 8th, 5 p.m., Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Game 2, 7 p.m., the Utah Jazz will host the Memphis Grizzlies. Jazz, of course, have the 10th pick. The Grizzlies have the 9th pick this year. So some talent coming in there. And then on July 9th, the Jazz will host the Oklahoma City Thunder. Oklahoma City has the 12th pick in this year's draft. So you'll see them again there. And then July 10th, the Jazz host the 76ers. 76ers do have a first rounder, but I think there's a lot of belief they're going to trade that pick. I would draft if I were them. They've got 2 people on the roster. Got Tyrese Maxey. Jeez Louise.
Yeah, I had a Sharapova thing last segment.
Mondays.
Yeah, buddy.
Tyrese, Evans, Halliburton, Maxey. Had to cycle through everybody.
It's like 6 different guys.
It's a hell of a player combined, though. And Joel Embiid. They've got 2 players on their roster, and they've got to add pieces.
A few.
Yeah. They should add all those guys I just mentioned. See what Tariq Evans is doing. He was good his rookie year.
It's cool when we randomly get like a number 1 pick. You know, we got. I was at Ben Simmons' first summer league, and
saw Chet Holmgren twice now.
That's pretty cool. Doesn't look like this year is going to be that. But you know what? Summer league is what it is from a positive standpoint. It's that wet the whistle appetite. You know, I combined a couple of metaphors. It's Monday. For the
Tyrese Sharapova.
For the basketball fan around here, we just want a little something. Want to get out, catch some ball, have a dog. It's always fun. I mean, there's stuff going around the arena. Like, it's a great way to kill a summer night with a family and wet your whistle. There's another one.
Yep.
If you're a basketball fan, it's great.
It is. It's easy to go to. It's pretty affordable. I think right now I've only seen 3-day passes available. I'm not sure if the 1-day individual passes were out yet. That might come closer to the actual. Are they out now? The 1-day passes. So that's a positive.
And it's not at Salt Lake Community College anymore, thank goodness.
Which I didn't mind when I was little and just wanted to go see basketball and you were up and close and personal to it. But, there are single-day passes go on sale today at 10 a.m.
I actually think Salt Lake Community College's facilities are just fine. They weren't just fine for that event. Well, actually, you know what? Let me put it another way. The arena's way better for that event. How's that?
Sure. It's
Maybe
deserving of a
Salt
bigger
Lake
arena
Community
than
College was just fine.
Slick offered.
The arena is better.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right. Because I don't want to bash your alma mater. I'm just saying, like, parking was rough. Like, that's a really small space outside the gym. Concessions weren't really
They were bad.
great for that kind of,
No,
size
silly.
of event or whatever. I mean, it just works much better at the arena.
Mm-hmm.
And you should never be like turning people away for a summer league game because it's full. You know what I mean?
And you want teams to come, and teams would have stopped coming if they continued to play at a non-NBA arena.
Well, they did stop coming.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have more coming up next. We'll get back into the finals. I thought Andrew shared an interesting thought on the Twitter machine based on our first segment discussing football school, basketball school, BYU, where the BYU basketball investment is coming from, NIL, all the things. So we'll revisit that whole topic as well. Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
A Monday warrior, mean stride. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride. Though his mind is not for Ben.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Real quick, Ben, because we have some stuff to dive into. And what do I need to hit, Christian? Sorry, Hanson Scotty going to be welcoming Ethan Millard with Teton Wealth in studio today to help with your retirement plan. Tune in or visit retireteton.com. Ben, this is a tweet from 35 minutes ago. But people know what the Streisand effect is, right?
You want to remind them?
Well, you probably could put it better than I can or remember the story better, but it's like Barbra Streisand sued somebody to stop a picture for coming out, right? And all it did was make everybody want to see the picture.
It was of her house.
Was it of her house?
Yeah.
It was something.
Yeah.
Where she worked very hard to keep it under wraps, and all it did was just fuel the interest into what this picture was. 35 minutes ago, Deion Sanders tweeted out, "When the hate don't work, they start telling lies." And all that makes me want to know is what are they lying about?
Yeah, right.
What's the lie out
Yeah,
there?
right. Now I'm going to look up
Now I'm going to figure
Deion
out
Sanders lie.
Yeah, what's
Colorado football.
What are people lying about?
Yeah.
Now I just want to know. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, to the point where I want to see what Barbra Streisand's house looks like now.
Yeah, I have no clue what Deion.
I'm dying.
Did you really, Christian? Already checked it out? Yeah. I mean, I don't know what he's talking about, but I'm going to find out what he's talking about. I'll tell you that right now. There's a thing to just keeping your head down and like disappearing for a minute because we forget. Like, I don't know what this lie is, but whatever the lie is, all Deion has to do is not say anything for a week, and then everybody forgets about it, and then he can go all about his life. Like, so many details, like what seemed like egregious things, all of a sudden a week later, no one cares about it. It's crazy. But all you do by saying is, all these lies out there, everybody's like, oh, what are people lying about? That's how it doesn't go away.
And this might be a tool by Deion to try and draw more attention. I mean, obviously he knows he's a marketing machine when it comes to drawing attention. He's great at that. He knows how to do that well. So I wouldn't put it past him understanding the Streisand effect here and, really working this in his favor. But
do you remember when the infamous pictures of Trey Burke were leaked?
Yes.
He's a great example of that.
Yes.
It was on Media Day.
Yep.
And they did it on Media Day for a reason. I don't know how much of this story is public. From my understanding, it was a blackmail kind of situation. Like, hey, we've got these photos and we're going to put them out there or whatever. And Media Day is coming up and you're going to have to face all this or you can pay us. And they were released. At Media Day, he addressed it once and was like, yeah, it's an embarrassing thing. I wish it didn't happen. Anyway, on with the season. Other than I think right now at this moment, nobody talked about it ever again.
Yeah.
Like all he had to do was basically just be like, and then keep his head down. And it all disappeared. Even amongst Jazz fans, where is that on the list of things that come to mind when the name Trey Burke is brought up? It's like 50th.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't get how people, and Deion is a pretty savvy PR guy. I don't know. That jumped out at me, Ben. And now I want to know, what are the lies?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, there's all the Colorado recruiting stuff, But I don't know how far it's going beyond that. Maybe it's behind the scenes that they're saying, hey, this is going to happen if you go to Colorado. And do you expect Colorado to be better next year than they were this year? Would they win 5 games this past year?
I don't know. You and I talked about it not that long ago. The thing is, they still have Shedeur, who is He's good. He's a good quarterback. And they cut the whole offensive line and signed a whole new offensive line. So how does that go? But no, I don't really expect him to be that much better.
I won't be surprised if they don't make a bowl game again.
Well, they were pretty terrible last year. But the thing is like, Deion should have set different standards because it was never going to just win the league. Colorado was the worst team in football.
Right.
Never going to step in year 1 and win the league.
Right.
Like, that was foolish PR on his part, too. Like, couch it. We're building things. We've got the quarterback. We've got to find the other pieces. Man, hopefully by the time Shadeur's an upperclassman, we really are in a position to make some waves. But that's not really the way that he sold it.
No, and I don't think that was ever the plan. Let's build this program so by the time he's a senior, he's just about trying to get his son into a first-round pick of the NFL, and then I think he's gone. Or first-round of the NFL draft, then he's gone.
That's not true, because if that were true, he would have gone in the NFL draft. He came back.
If you thought he was going to get drafted in the first round. And I know there were talks about that.
You don't think Deion can't get his kid drafted in the first round?
I don't know.
It would have happened. People, the bozos like us, were talking about him being in the first round.
Absolutely. There was talk about him being a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
Bo Nix got taken in the first round.
Yeah, Bo Nix did.
So, I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I could speculate that it's not about Shedeur, but it's actually about Deion, but that would be speculation. So, I don't know. No, I think Colorado's going to suck.
I think so, too.
We were talking in the first segment, Ben, about BYU and Utah and comparing them, not necessarily, but talking about resources. And BYU basketball has come into a bunch of resources. And Utah football has seemed to play their resources pretty well. They had a big recruiting weekend, and they just signed our guy Rock. Cam Rising came back. Who was our Dalton Kincaid came back. They've had some resources so far and have invested them, it would seem, pretty wisely. Now, we said, well, what's BYU football's issue? And we also said, what's Utah's basketball's issue?
Right.
And Andrew tweets in, I thought had some thoughts. He says, I don't think the coaching staff for BYU football wants to go the NIL paying players route. Satake has said that multiple times. The basketball staff has no problem doing it and seems to lean into it. Any thoughts on that?
Occam's razor tells me that the simplest explanation is usually the answer. And I hate to reduce it to this, but I think Kyle Whittingham is probably a better coach than Craig Smith. And I think Mark Pope might have been a better coach than Kalani Sitake. And we'll see if Kevin Young is better. But it's like you're talking about why are they getting more out of their teams? You know what I mean? And is it, Kalani doesn't want to use money to invest in his players. Like, Kalani would cackle at that idea. Of course he wants the money to help. Now, is that what he's leading with? Is that what he's... Maybe not. Maybe that's not the image that they're selling. And there are entire teams and programs within athletic departments whose whole identity is selling that we're going to pay you more than anybody else. And we actually don't care. I mean, they want results, but it's not culture. It's not team building. It's not this and that. It's we're going to pay you the most, and that's going to be exciting for us. Do I think that's what Kalani Sitake is trying to build BYU football into being? Of course not. No, I don't think he wants that. Do I think he wants it to be about more than that? Sure, I do believe that. If Kalani had a $40 million recruiting budget, he would spend every penny.
But how is interesting to talk about. If Kalani were not necessarily leaning in, quote unquote, to the NIL thing, that sounds bad, but it's not necessarily bad. And I'll give you an example. Because everybody thinks Dabo, right? And all of a sudden Clemson isn't anything. But you know how Creighton is doing their NIL money?
How?
Even across the board.
Okay, everyone gets the same share.
There isn't a player, and that's what they sell because they're Creighton, and they're not going to land the recruit.
Right. They've got a borderline first rounder this year, but he's not top 4 pick.
Right, and they probably developed that guy. What year is he?
Yeah, he's 23, Baylor Shireman. Yeah, he's old dude. He's been there forever.
Right. So their whole thing is that they're going to lean into the team concept. I bet their locker room is a lot more healthy because of it. because there's not the jelly nature that we also talked about there in the 10 o'clock hour. So they're never going to have more NIL money than, say, Kansas, right? So it's not necessarily their path to win, so they're going to try and do it a different way. Who was the transfer they landed from Utah State? Go go find guys like that,
right.
Overachievers at other programs who – Stephen Ashworth, thank you very much, Christian, who, this would be a nice payday for, and then come into a healthy locker room and go ball, If BYU were doing that, I wouldn't blame them. I don't know if it's going to work, but I wouldn't blame them in the slightest, and that might be the path for BYU is we're not going to necessarily wow you with our overall numbers, but we're going to take care of you, and you're going to come here for different reasons, and then you're going to stay for different reasons. Because in basketball, Ben, we've talked about this a million times, it's one thing to find a non-LDS player who is going to be a difference maker and still willing to live up to the honor code, right? To find one of those guys, like Keena Young, find one of those dudes who's a real difference maker. That makes a huge difference in basketball. That's not a drop in the bucket in football.
I think
that's what I mean?
No, I think that's a huge part of this conversation. It's what's really interesting and where we have made this mistake. And I've probably pushed it as well because I've had these conversations on air for a long time. And what's the conversation we've always had about Utah? If they only had a quarterback. If they only had a quarterback. What does that actually mean? Well, that does actually mean, and I want to bring into because one of the things you've said for BYU to win is they need to go get the John Beck. They need to go get the superstar quarterback, and that's always been their recipe for winning. The funny thing about when we say that for Utah is if they only had a quarterback, what we're actually saying is, well, they have everything else. They just need like an okay player at quarterback. And when they have an okay player at quarterback, and Cam Rising's better than okay, he's not the top quarterback in the country, where BYU has in their history had the top quarterback in the country more than once. Mm-hmm. Utah has everything else. They just need a guy who's a little better than average. And when you get that guy who's a little better than average, look at them. They take off. They're unbelievable. The problem for BYU, even now at this point, is if you go and get that best quarterback in the country, I don't know if that lifts everybody else now. And I don't know if BYU has everything else right now at that point versus basketball where you are a couple of other players. Now, ironically, BYU has a pretty loaded roster. They have a lot of good players everywhere.
But with BYU or Utah football, why do they have everything else? Because they don't have a quarterback.
Absolutely.
Because they don't have a quarterback. The way that Utah plays is not conducive to recruiting a quarterback. Why would you want to go play for Utah if you were a baller quarterback? Now, if you're Cam Rising, who is a baller because he's a gamer, because he's going to win and he's a winner and he's going to make you great plays and he's going to make his teammates better, all these things that Cam Rising does, well, then that's perfect.
But
that's
he's not going to border
fit.
on 4,000 yards to the air and no.
Not a thing.
35 touchdowns and 17 interceptions. Witt's not going to let you throw 17 interceptions.
The only true ballers Utah has ever had at quarterback are Alex Smith and Scott Mitchell, and is that it? And they weren't very good with Scott. I think that's it, right? Yeah. And they had their best team ever, in my opinion, in 2004.
Yeah.
When they had a baller at quarterback. After that, it's been all gamers. And Tyler Huntley turned into a really good player, but I don't know if he was ever, he wasn't a first-round draft pick. He's found a good fit, but he didn't leave Utah Steve Young. Travis Wilson, Jordan Wynn, all these players are just, you're not going to go to Utah if you're, I don't know, because that's not how they play. No. That's why the frustration with Utah around, well, if they could just get some receivers. It's like, oh, well, call me when you get one. Because they're not going to go, star receivers don't want to block.
Right.
And the frustrating part about this conversation is that that's exactly what makes Utah good.
Yep.
Now, where that doesn't work is at BYU. And if I have a criticism of the current coaching staff, and I've said this a million times, is stop trying to Utah BYU. BYU is the home of Norm Chow and Lavelle Edwards and Ty Eber and Steve Young and Jim McMahon. And we could just talk with Gift Nielsen. It goes back.
Absolutely.
And it's not like there isn't recent history, like with Zach Wilson.
Right.
And Max Hall and John Beck. And Brandon Doman. I don't want to leave anybody out. But stop trying to you're never going to have a good defense. You're never going to be more athletic than the other team. So play your advantages. So how does BYU do that? I think they do have to sell that there's a greater purpose to be at BYU. And then I think they have to figure out how to find the next stud quarterback to go there for whatever reason. Ty Detmer was an LDS at the time, right? Mm-hmm. So it doesn't. Jim McMahon was an LDS,
right?
But it worked. But it's harder to find that in football, I think, than basketball because you need so many more. So you got to sell the BYU culture, and that's not effective for landing the stud upperclassman quarterback. It's not.
It is funny you can convince basketball players to come live that lifestyle for.
Well, they're there for 10 minutes.
5 months, yeah.
They're
and
there
then
for 10 minutes.
People might be surprised at how often kids drop out of school the day after the basketball season ends.
I'd say it's more than 50% of the time.
They just stop going to class. If they're one and done NBA players.
If they're not going to
NBA
come back the next year, or even if they're going to transfer. How many players quit as soon as the conference tournament's over because they're just going to leave? It happens all the time.
Yeah. No, it's
football.
Constant.
You're there.
You're there, and you're back next year, and you're fighting for your spot next year. So you have to stay invested, and then you have to be there for spring football, and you have to be around over the summer, and you have to be there for fall camp. Yeah, it's nonstop. And it's hard to do. It's hard to live that lifestyle if you're going to stay there at BYU and play football.
Maybe resources aren't the issue with BYU. Maybe they have the resources they need. They just have to figure out how to best sell their program to the players that will most impact it. You know, Max Hall was an Arizona State transfer, right? Zach Wilson was a recruit. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but it has to work at BYU, and it has to be better than Gary Bohannon.
It's so. I have a hard time saying this because I don't know, so maybe I shouldn't even say it. But do we think Kevin Young is going to these players and selling BYU's lifestyle to Yegor Dioman to come and play at?
No,
BYU.
but he better be mentioning it.
No, of course. You can't hide it because you'll lose that guy in a week. I mean, honestly, if kids don't know what to expect and they live like a lot of college athletes do.
And you have to tell them it's a big deal and that they have to do it and that the consequences are high. Go see Brandon Davies. I mean, you got to do it.
You absolutely have to do it. No question about it. But I don't know if he's selling that the same way I imagine Kalani has to sell it for BYU when he's trying to recruit non-LDS recruits.
Why would it be different for Kalani?
Because Kalani's trying to sell a kid for 2 years, 3 years, and Kevin Young is selling Yegor Dioman for.
Yeah, well, they obviously sold Keaton on it for 1 year. I mean, it is possible.
Yeah. And for those 1 year guys, it's probably a little bit easier.
Yeah, like the senior upperclassmen transfers or whatever. Yeah. But I don't know. I think BYU needs to go grassroots and figure out what made BYU successful for so long and figure out how to do that. Now, what's interesting in that is that BYU basketball is not going grassroots. They're not going back to what made them the most successful. They're going with a completely different model, and we'll see how that ends up winning in the end. But BYU basketball has not been anywhere near as successful as BYU football.
Historically, no.
Not even close.
And I think you've made an astute point, probably off the air, that none of this is new.
It's not.
Kevin Young is not the first person to bring a pro-style approach to recruiting to BYU athletics.
So we'll see. There was a football coach back in the day that tried the very same thing, and it went horribly.
Didn't last very long.
But again, that might be a numbers game.
Yeah.
That might be a numbers game where like football, you just need so many more players. In basketball, you just need a guy.
Agreed.
You just need one guy. And not that role players aren't that important, but the ultimate success usually in college basketball rise and falls with like one dude.
The funny thing is, though, I don't even know if you can do it with a one and done freshman. That's what's so interesting about the Yegor Dioman thing to me is like, let's say he's really good, he may not help your team win. It's so weird to me. I don't know, and I would do it if I were in charge of a team and I could recruit a 5-star freshman. Give me the 5-star freshman, absolutely. I don't know if that's who wins. Right. So I can't wait for this BYU basketball season. I'm thrilled to watch this.
It's the Big 12.
I can't wait.
It ain't intramurals, brother. All right, stay tuned. Jake and Ben, we'll have more for you coming up straight at 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson.
1, 2, 3, move it.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Join the Zone for Hanson Scotty's Day of Adoption in partnership with the Humane Society of Utah. Just $12.80 adoption fees all day on June 25th. Plus, the Zone will be live from the Humane Society of Utah in Murray from 10 to 3. Bring home a furry friend on Hanson Scotty's Day of Adoption. Like, I'm stoked we're included on this whole thing, but couldn't we make it like Jake and Ben and Hanson Scotty's Day of Adoption if we're going to be out there?
Yeah, I think so.
Because
Jake
now,
Scott, Day of Adoption, going home with 3 dogs.
No. Now when we're out there, though, we're just going to say, hey, welcome into the Hanson Scotty's Day of Adoption. And it's like, well, what are you guys doing there?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's kind of how it's always been.
Or would that be an ego play?
No, we should do more ego plays, I think.
Should we throw our weight around more, you think? Mm-hmm. That should be a thing?
You and I should pool some money and get some recruits to some school locally, or we should buy the Big 12.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Jake and Ben's Big 12.
I don't know if we can come up with that much dough, but yeah.
Maybe we can do a game. Let me do the first week. Week 0.
Week
Are there
0?
any Week 0 games? Someone's playing
brought to you by
Hawaii Southern or something?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah, we can do that. Let's do it.
I don't think we can do that.
We'll pool all of our money. We might be able to buy pregame of the Week 0.
Hey, can I bring up a I said, where it's kind of a theme of the day, but all this stuff has happened before. Can I tell you another story I'm annoyed with?
Yep.
Aaron Rodgers in minicamp. The 40-year-old quarterback doesn't show up to minicamp? Well, duh. The 40-year-old quarterback never shows up to minicamp. Why is that and plus, if your 40-year-old quarterback is recovering from an Achilles injury, do you really want him at minicamp?
Is he going to end up as one of the most hated players in Jets history? I just don't.
No.
Do you expect him to play a whole lot? I honestly don't expect him to make it through this season either.
I don't know, because the Achilles is such a. I mean, if he was having, I don't know, back issues or something, but an Achilles we should be able to fix pretty well. It's not like he shouldn't be in much danger of rupturing it again.
I agree. I would think so, but I mean, again, he's 40. He hasn't played for a year. He's got all these. I don't expect him to stay healthy, whether it's Achilles or whatnot.
But quarterbacking's different. I mean, if he gets protection, he should be fine. But we saw what happened with the Jets last year and Zach Wilson,
Yeah.
But Rodgers has played with bad lines before, and he gets the ball out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. If he were Ben Roethlisberger, I might be buying into that a little more, because Ben's whole thing was, I'm going to stand here forever, and people are going to bounce off me until somebody's open.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers is get back and get it out. That's why Tom Brady could play forever.
Yeah, Aaron's
and why
a
he
little
never
more
got
mobile,
hit.
but yeah, sure, I get what you're saying.
But he can play that way.
He can.
So, I don't know. He's not going to. The butt fumble was pretty infamous.
Of course.
Everybody doesn't like Mark Sanchez.
But there was so much expectation for Aaron Rodgers to come in and turn that team into a Super Bowl contender. Maybe they will. Maybe he gets there.
You can play injury off, though, as fluke. Nobody truly hates somebody for getting hurt.
No, you're right. I mean, Zach Wilson's still more hated than Aaron Rodgers will be.
Right. Like, I don't think Celtics fans hate Gordon Hayward because he got hurt.
No, certainly not. That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. But Jets fans hate everything. Jets fans hate their own first-round draft picks, even when they're good. That's their thing. They hate things. They're haters.
Yeah, but I find that whole thing he missed minicamp. Why is it front page even now on ESPN? I mean, how many minicamps did he miss when he played in Green Bay?
And a lot of guys miss minicamp, And I get it. You get fined technically because you just don't get your whole paycheck. But they know it. It's worth the money for them. It's worth to go be in the Bahamas or wherever he likes to vacation.
And he doesn't need minicamp. We watched the stupid, what's it called, Hard Knocks. And, I mean, it's just the Aaron Rodgers show where he gets to do whatever he wants. Who cares? By the way, Christian brought this to our attention. They've announced the new format for Hard Knocks. Is that true?
Yeah, so I initially read it wrong. The training camp edition of Hard Knocks is going to be the Chicago Bears. But then last year they started doing the in-season Hard Knocks, and this year they're going to cover the whole AFC North for the in-season Hard Knocks.
Because they did Miami in-season last year, right? It made a celebrity out of their Poindexter coach. So we get fingernails this year.
I don't know if that's good for him.
Oh, I don't think it's good for him.
I want privacy.
Oh, yeah, you need that guy to go off the map. Like the same thing with Baker Mayfield in Cleveland. It's like, no, you don't need more attention. You need less, actually, because you've got to practice more.
I feel like they did it not that long ago. But, like, the Texans are a good team this year to do it. Awesome year last year, young star quarterback, got some veterans. You've got Stephon Diggs now, right? Didn't they just trade for him? Like, you've got some personalities.
They don't fit the criteria, though, right? There's criteria that whittles it down. Did the Texans make the playoffs last year?
They did.
Yeah, well, then they're out.
Oh, really? You have to miss the playoffs?
You have to miss the playoffs, yeah. There's like, because nobody wants it, right? So there's all this built-in criteria of how do we not have it? And they never have a playoff team. They have to pick like one of the worst teams in the league. That's like the criteria.
Credit to the
Jets.
Jets.
The criteria is they cannot have a brand new head coach. They cannot have made the playoffs in the previous 2 seasons.
2 seasons.
And they cannot have been on Hard Knocks in the past 10 years. So that really, really narrows
it whittles it down, yeah.
I think this year it was like the Bears, the Broncos, and one other team were like the only 3 candidates.
And they didn't want to do the Zach Wilson thing again. They didn't want to follow Zach.
Crap on Zach Wilson all the time. Poor guy.
That was so brutal.
It was terrible.
I like Hard Knocks. I totally get it's not real.
Last year was a joke.
They paint it to be one thing, and it's always something totally different. And I end up buying into the team every year. Like, there's going to be a good team. I watched Hard Knocks.
Well, they were just a year early on Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Because all the things that you saw in Hard Knocks that gave you like, oh, this is going to be good, actually ended up coming true, but just a year later.
That might just be a thing in the NFL period. We're always a little bit of a year early on NFL teams. It feels like, you think they're going to be a breakout, and it just takes a while.
Well, I think the Bears are going to be terrible.
They are going to be bad. Yeah, they're still going to be bad.
So, I don't know. But maybe Fingernails Williams will make it entertaining.
What's a good year for Caleb?
Survival.
Yeah, I mean, like, he could have...
Not losing the job.
16 touchdowns and 16 interceptions, and I think you'd be like, well, it's okay, I guess.
Peyton Manning's rookie season was terrible. Yeah. So, most high pro... That's why it's not fair to throw these guys into the fire right away, even though it's just inevitable now. I mean, the Jordan Love process is really the ideal one, right? And maybe you can make the argument to me that Jordan sat maybe an extra year than he needed to, but I would disagree. The patience to learn and prepare and get yourself into the best position to do that, I think is still the best.
I agree, and it's why I don't mind that the Falcons drafted Michael Penix after signing Kirk Cousins. Now,
I agree. You and I both are like the only people that had that opinion.
Do I get why he was mad? I do, 100%. Atlanta's actually been pretty good at drafting recently. They've done a pretty good job on that front. So, and in 3 years, when Cousins is washed and Penix is ready to go, and if he steps in and is as good or better than Kirk Cousins, great.
Listen, I have no idea if Zach Wilson or Mitchell Trubisky, or man, let's think of some other examples. I'm sure we could come up with them.
Josh Rosen.
I have no idea if they would have been, all pro quarterbacks, but I do know that their franchises damaged them. Like the Jets damaged Zach Wilson. If he had a chance to become a good quarterback, they ruined it. The Bears ruined it for Mitch Trubisky. And again, maybe he would have sat for a couple of years, eased in, and been terrible too. I don't know. But I know that starting those guys day one and expecting them to be any semblance of good was doing them a huge disservice. I think.
Absolutely, clearly.
I mean, Andrew Luck was okay his freshman year. Peyton Manning was terrible.
Yep.
I mean, who was really good their rookie season?
Oh, I mean, it's funny. We have this conversation always. And look, he played his rookie season, and obviously it mattered. But, like, Tom Brady got a little bit of a chance to sit back and watch, right? The expectations weren't there.
No, not at all.
Had a great quarterback in front of him on a good team. Got to sit back, take it in, be a student.
Well, the irony of it all, Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And speaking of stuff repeating itself, isn't it hilarious that the Brett Favre story repeated itself almost exactly? Sans some nudie pics from the training table. Or remember that story?
I do. Not good.
That was really the beginning of the end in a variety of ways for Brett Favre, but I hope that doesn't happen. We have more ayahuasca and less nudie pics. But it's like the exact same story. Aaron Rodgers was bent they drafted Jordan Love, just like Brett Favre was bent that they drafted Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely.
Both players, Brett and Aaron, think that they're going to play forever. both got traded to the Jets. And Aaron Rodgers was pretty good the first year he played. And Jordan Love, I would argue, was better than Aaron Rodgers was. And they make the playoffs.
Yep.
God, I'm pulling for that dude. Tell me you're not pulling for Jordan Love.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the more beloved figures in the NFL now, like kind of universally. He's just one of those guys people are rooting for the exact reason. And a lot of people don't like Aaron Rodgers.
Ended up at Utah State because everybody passed on him. Took that league by storm. Gets drafted by the Packers, who obviously have a way of doing things. And you think, oh, next to Aaron Rodgers? Hello? The exact same stuff happens. It's wild. Yeah, I'd watch myself if I were the Jets training staff. Be like, I've seen this story before. You get any text from Aaron Rodgers, you just reject them.
Don't look.
Just don't look. Whatever you do, don't look. We've seen what happens with these Green Bay quarterbacks that come here to die. Okay, how about this? How about this, Ben? Will this be Aaron Rodgers' last stop?
Yeah, I think this is his last year.
You think it's his last year, period?
Yeah, I think this is his last season.
Oh, I don't know, man.
He doesn't want it to be. I don't know. He's so all over the place.
But see, even if he stinks, though, the next franchise next year, if he wants to play, will say, well, it's Aaron Rodgers. And the Jets don't count because they stink.
San Francisco 49ers. Right?
Somebody will sign him.
Doesn't he kind of have that, like, it's the
He'd
University
go
of
home.
Utah thing? We've got everything else. If we just had a quarterback. And
sign a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely.
He's from he went to school in the Bay Area.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
Northern California.
Yeah, somebody
in,
will sign him
be the
even
guy.
if he stinks.
I could see that. Okay, I could see that.
Rusty Wilson is playing for Pittsburgh this upcoming year. That guy stinks.
He was okay last
and
year.
apparently is just horrible to deal with. Like, okay last year to the point where the coach could not wait to get rid of him.
Yeah, right. Oh, they cut him. I mean, they ate $70 million or whatever it was.
Get me away from this guy.
Yeah. Give me Zach Wilson.
But Pittsburgh go, well, let's get him under our umbrella. We've got Mike Tomlin, and we're the model of stability, and on and on and on. My guess is Rusty, though, still stinks.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
But my point is that if Aaron Rodgers wants,
anywhere.
Unless he gets devastatingly injured, if he wants to play next year, the year after this one, he'll play. Just like Favre went to Minnesota. Hey, maybe Aaron Rodgers might go to Minnesota. They need a quarterback.
That would be funny.
Who'd they just draft?
JJ.
That guy might stink. The stink factor on that guy, the chance of stinking is extremely high.
He's a first-round quarterback. The stink factor is through the roof.
And probably didn't deserve to be a first-round quarterback.
Got a little Michigan sheen there. Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's funny, though, how history repeats itself. In Green Bay, I mean, can you imagine if they'd be able to go from Favre to Rodgers to Love? If Love turns out to be,
Shoot, they should draft a quarterback in the first round next year.
Turn the heat up on the veteran.
Keep it going.
And it did. It sparked big
Draft
seasons.
Shador next year.
Sparked big seasons from Favre and Rodgers because they were bent about it and needed to prove that they weren't washed up. Rodgers won MVP. Yeah. Brilliant.
What's the over-under on Jordan Love MVP? What's the number? What am I at? Probably not. No, I bet you. I don't even know if you can do it yet.
I don't know, man. And Green Bay's the youngest team in the league, and they were that good last year.
Yeah.
And they don't have to pay really anybody. I mean, they can all just grow together.
Plus 1,300.
Ben, let's get to Dover.
You and I want to buy that first game of the Big 12 weekend.
Let's get out to the state line.
You and I don't want to be doing tag-alongs on remotes anymore. Start getting our names on our own remotes.
Hit this and you can get the halftime show, too.
Yeah, right. We can buy.
Okay.
Move over, Pepsi. It's the Jake and Ben halftime show. It's actually just you and I doing our show for 15 minutes.
By the way, I love this. And our friend...
on one of our stupid segments where we don't talk about anything.
Our friend Jimmy just tweeted this in. Our buddy who's the Lions fan. He says, I'm not pulling for Jordan Love, but I'm a petty Lions fan. Packers need to see what it's like to have a bad quarterback.
No, I don't blame that division for... Yeah, Bears fans aren't rooting for Jordan Love.
No, but how many franchises, and the Bears are the best example of this, but how many franchises out there have spent long periods of time scrambling to find a dude at quarterback? Like, that's like the story of the league. And the Packers have had 3 guys. Again, he's not there yet, so I don't want to count my chickens, obviously. But, like, if they put together a string of, what would that be? 40 years of great quarterback play?
Well, early 90s for Brett to, 30-plus years of Hall of Fame caliber.
If Jordan could come do it for 10, 12, 13 years?
And all in somewhat bizarre fashion, right? I mean, they traded for Brett after a year. Where was he?
Atlanta,
yeah. And then
drafted Rodgers.
Draft Rodgers and don't play him for 4 years, and then draft Jordan Love and don't play him for 4 years. And all these other teams are like, we lost an entire season. We're investing everything we have into this.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like the San Antonio Spurs. You keep getting all these dynastic centers. How is that possible? Going back to 1989?
How many different starting quarterbacks since the early 90s, Brett Favre? And I'm not talking about even like injury fill-in starting quarterbacks. I'm talking about like, this is our guy, has the Cleveland Browns had in that same amount of time.
Oh, Joe Flacco's the best quarterback I've ever seen the Browns have. Played like 8 games for them this year. Yeah, over and over and over and over. Just investing everything you have.
And you look at the Packers and it's like, you got another dude? Really?
I guess we'll just take him. Sure, we'll use him. He works.
It's wild.
Yeah,
Good for them.
It is.
And everybody thinks like they're making all these huge mistakes by not like bending over and just kowtowing to Aaron Rodgers and drafting whoever he wants to draft and all this stuff. And he gets grumpy and is high maintenance and all this. And all they do is put themselves in contention with Aaron Rodgers and then move on at the exact right minute. It's crazy.
Yep.
Be more like the Packers, less like the Bears.
Don't be like the Bears.
Don't be like the Bears. More like the Packers, less like the Bears. That should be the like starting question for any interview for a GM in the NFL. How are you going to make us more like the Packers and less like the Bears?
Go.
They're both like in the same part of the cold country.
Yeah, right.
They're very comparable franchises.
Same division, yeah, absolutely. Oh, and Chicago should win 1,000 times more than Green Bay ever wins. 1,000 times more. They have all the advantages. Great sports town, cool town, period. With all due respect to Milwaukee and Wisconsin all over.
Pretty devoted fan base.
But, man.
Hot garbage.
Hot garbage. Yeah.
Hot garbage. All right, stay tuned. Wrapping up the show next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us? No!
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two niggas on the airways, talking sports. They got him Matrix and also loves his tie-dye. Ben's got style with his scarf. Oh my. From the islands to the basketball court.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. This segment is brought to you by Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach Doors and Windows, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Peach Doors and Windows. We also want to remind you to get the official debit cards of the Utah Jazz, University of Utah Sports, Real Salt Lake, and more exclusively at America First Credit Union. Hans and Scotty are coming up next. And I think we should play our song for Rock one more time on the way out. All right, we'll play it on the way out. Rock got an offer from Utah. We're happy for him. I think it'll be a good way to go out with the show. But, Ben, let me ask you this. Are we talking about a finals that is over tomorrow, or are we talking about an NBA finals that is continuing back to Dallas?
I think we're making preparations for a Boston parade. Wednesday, Thursday, something like that.
Yeah, I think so.
A lot of people have the day off Wednesday for Juneteenth. I wouldn't be surprised if they hijacked that. Just said, yeah, we'll do it.
We'll do it then when everybody's off work.
Do it then. Guys want to go off on vacation. Guys don't want to stick around in their cities after.
No. But the attention of a parade is kind of nice.
That's fun. That part of it's cool. And then still, it would be great? Taking off for the long weekend.
If you were an NBA player and you could truly, the world was your oyster, the day after you got done with the parade, where would you go?
I honestly, part of me thinks the last thing I'd ever want to do is get on a plane. But also, I get they just haven't seen family. They haven't seen.
Oh, but you're celebrating. Like, I'm not going to, bless my family. I've got the all off season to, and I'm not talking about my immediate family, by the way. I'm talking like, extended family. Like wherever you go, I would assume you'd take your children with you. But I'm saying like, you got to pick somewhere celebratory. You don't have to be J.R. Smith and spend a week shirtless in Vegas. But I think maybe like a nice spot in Hawaii or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Turks and whatever. Yeah.
Turks and Caicos?
Yeah.
I'd go back to Fiji.
Yeah, right. What I'm not doing is walking. So, like, I want to go to Europe.
But
I've
you're
only
not,
barely done Europe. I'm not going to go.
You're not going to Rome where you got to walk.
Right.
Yeah, where you got to walk everywhere.
I'm not doing
No, I
that.
hear ya.
I'm laying. I'm going to be horizontal the entire trip.
Relaxing. Yeah, I hear you.
So
go to Europe in a month.
Yeah, right.
Uh-huh.
Take the family then.
Exactly.
But no, I will be prone.
Sleeping on a chaise lounge somewhere.
Yeah, the fresh air
and then a coconut beverage.
Nice ocean water.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm with you. All right. Big thanks to everybody who listened today. We appreciate it. Hans and Scotty are coming up next. And if you did not hear the breaking news earlier in the show, Rock Olson, Hans' son, has gotten an offer from Utah, and he has several other offers, including Utah State.
New
so
Mexico.
shout out to Rock. But I wrote a song about Hans and Rock and his family, and we'll just play that on the way out.
Thanks, Christian.
Got a story about a man named Hans. Used to play ball, had big dreams and plans. But he wasn't as good as his uncle Merlin. Always felt like he was just to throw it in. Now his son Rock, he was just to throw it in. Now his son Rock, he's the real deal. Gonna take the field, show him how it feels. Hans had his time, but now it's Rock's turn. He's gonna make his mark. Let the world learn. Let the world learn. Set to make his mark. The Rock's gonna take it to the highest spot.